Okay, so say that the key points to the PID controller is the integral piece and the derivative piece are tied to delta t. So you got to have some kind of timer. You got to have some kind of timer piece. So we're doing the calculation only when the timer is done. All right, and then I had x2 was turning on the control. All right, and so when the timer is done, I am doing basically 5 steps. Step 1 is moving the current error value back to the previous value. So that's getting these 2 points. Okay, so I have this time right here. So I have this time here and this value here. These are the errors. And what I have to do is as we go to the next time, so like right now, when I'm doing a calculation, I've got this error right here and the previous error. This is the previous error. Okay. But now when we go to the next delta t over here, I first have to move my error, okay, because this value here was error. This value right here was my error, but I have to move it into the variable previous error. Okay, so I have to move that value into the previous error, and then I'm going to calculate my new error. But I can't calculate the new error until I've already moved in the previous error into error previous. Okay, so it's critical that you do it in order. Otherwise, you're not going to get that trapezoid because you're just going to have a rectangular piece, which you could kind of do it that way, but it won't be as accurate. Okay, and so here on this top block right there, I'm moving the error into error previous. And then I'm going to calculate the new error, which is set point minus my process variable, my feedback value. And that's my new error. And then in this case, I was just hard coding the delta t value, which is I'm just basically doing a move. I'm using a math block or a compute block, but I'm basically just doing a move because I'm not actually scaling it or anything. And then I'm calculating the integrator error. So that's error plus error previous times delta t divided by 2. That's that trapezoid. And then we're adding the previous one to it. So remember, we're going through there and I just have a rectangle here, but we're adding this area, and then we're going to add this area, and then when we do the next delta t, we would add this area, and then we're going to add this area. Okay, so each time we go through, we're going to be adding these areas up. Okay, so we're adding them all together. So that's why I've got plus CO under integrator. So the integrator value, CO underscore integrator, is equal to the integrator plus the new area, that new trapezoid piece. And then the derivative is calculating the slope. Okay. So the derivative here is calculating the slope. So we're looking at, okay, here's this slope. This is how fast I was changing here. Okay, so it's this value divided by delta t. And then the next time, this is my slope. So you can see that the slope here, the slope was rising. So the slope was positive. It was, you know, because we're going actually from this value up to this value. So we're going up. So it was a positive slope. But then this very next time, it's a negative slope. Now we're going downhill. And then at the next one, we're going to go downhill. So we're going, you know, we're going down and down. So our changing is going negative here. But over here, our change was going up. Okay. So the derivative piece can change in a blink of an eye. Okay. Every time delta t is done, our derivative is changing, and it can change from a positive to a negative in the blink of an eye, basically, right? Because this is happening, delta t right now is 5 milliseconds. So every 5 milliseconds, not only is the value of the derivative changing, but the whole sign of it. It could be positive one time and negative the next. And so it can really toggle the system around. And because we're dividing by delta t, which is 5 milli, the value is going to get very big very quickly if there's a big change. All right, so but those, the integrator control piece and the derivative control piece is only changing at when the delta t is done. Okay. And then here, this was just scaling because we had our integrator value from our simulator piece. We have these analog inputs and outputs that we can change. And so, but these are integer values, number one, and they're kind of big. I mean, they're going up to 4,000. A gain of 4,000 is probably usually considered very large for most control systems. And so what I'm doing is I'm scaling that. So the WX1, which was K proportional, my proportional gain, I was dividing by 2,000. So the highest this gain could actually be would be 2, because it's 4,000 or 4095 divided by 2,000 is as big as it can get. And the same with the integrator piece. So we have the WX2 divided by 2,000 for K integrator. And then the derivative piece, it's really tiny. Okay, so it's WX3, which could be as much as 4,000 divided by 8,000. So the highest the derivative could possibly be is 0.5. Okay, but if you make it too big, so you know when I'm setting that, right now my derivative piece, where'd the simulator window go? There it is. Okay, the derivative piece here is at 2. Okay, 2 divided by 8,000. So that's, you know, that's less than a milli. So it's a very small. Okay. All right, so then if we watch this system here, if I start pushing the derivative piece up, I'm trying to get them both on a screen here to kind of have it on the screen, but it's clicking on the windows. All right, so I guess it's going up now. If I just, if I increase this to 10, it might break it. I don't know. Okay. Now, right now, it's not changing that much. So I made a big change in my derivative, but because the system was running really slow right now, it wasn't that big. Okay, so here, you see this? I actually have overshoot now. By changing that derivative, I actually overshot the value. Okay, but you also see that it's moving quite a bit faster now and getting closer to where it's supposed to go. But let's see what happens when it goes back up. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. All right, so now this system is unstable. Okay. So I'm going to bring my gains down to try to get the system back under control. Yeah, got it. All right, so as I said, the real key to this this PID control is just to tune it to get out of it what you want. All right, and so I mean, with this fast system that I gave you, this thing's just it's really hard to do too much with it without driving it out of control, right? All this over here just means that it was just going out of control. Okay, I was trying to push it too hard and it couldn't do it. So, you know, but you can kind of experiment with these various different gains. And I think it, okay, there it goes. It was off the screen. All right, but you can kind of experiment with them, and that's a great thing about a simulator is you can experiment without actually breaking things, right? So if it started doing all that crazy bouncing around on a real system, you know, then chances are you're damaging something. But with the simulator, at least you can simulate it and see what it's working, how well it's working. The only catch is with the simulator is, you know, it's not the real system, but you can at least get an idea of what may work pretty well. And, you know, so if we try to increase, say, our integration, of course, every time I move it, then it does it. So that when it does this little blip because I moved the gains, you can't really count that because you're changing the control in the middle of the thing. So, all right. So, but anyhow, that was the long answer to is it working? The thing is it following the set point? Is it heading toward the set point in a controlled sort of way? Whoa. Apparently I lost my connection. I don't know if you guys can hear me right now. We're not going to cover any new stuff this week. Let me just, you know, kind of go through here and review everything that we've done. Okay, so week one, we did analog signals. And so we just, you know, we talked about the different analog signals. We talked about voltage signals and how they attenuate. And we talked about the current signals, which are usually considered much better for use in industrial applications because they don't attenuate primarily. Then we looked at number systems, including like the you know, binary to decimal or binary to hexadecimal. And also we talked about 2's complement. So remember that the way we store a negative number is by doing the 2's complement. And the reason for that is that then we can do we can add, instead of subtracting, we can actually just add. So if we have two positive numbers and we want to subtract them, the first thing we do is we take the number we're going to subtract and we make it a negative number. So we apply the 2's complement of it. So if it's a positive number, then it's just the binary value. But if it's a negative value, then we apply that 2's complement piece to it. All right, and then we talked a little bit about the networking and the subnet, the IP address, and how the subnet and the subnet mask define whether you're on the same network or not. So with the subnet mask, you can have, if even though your numbers may be the same, right? So if we think about an IP address, for instance, and you have 156.125.20.1, okay, and then you have if you have a /24 for your subnet mask, and then you have 156.125.21.1, okay, and then if we have 156.125.20.1/16, or 156.125.21.1/16. Okay, so these are on the same network, but these are on different networks. Okay, because of that subnet mask piece. Okay, so the subnet mask /24 says it's 24 bits is the mask. So what that says is that these 3 numbers are the network. And so since these 3 numbers are different than these 3 numbers, you're saying you're on 2 different networks. But over here, /16 says only the first 2 numbers are the network, and so therefore you're on the same network. All right, so then we talked about just, the analog cards and how they, the analog is converting a current signal or a voltage signal into that binary number inside of the PLC. Okay. And then we had the first exam. After the first exam, then we talked about scaling. Right, and so with the scaling, you had to scale. So we used like load cells was what the lab was for. We took and we had to convert, or the load cell was generating millivolts, and then we ran that millivolt into converters and made it a 4 to 20 milliamp signal. Okay, and then that 4 to 20 milliamp signal became a binary number inside the PLC. But that binary number really represents how many pounds of force is being applied to the load cell. And so, so there's like lots of different scaling in there that, you can do. Honestly, a lot of times you don't really have to worry about the scaling of like the millivolts to milliamps kind of thing. What you really care about is I've got a number inside of my PLC that's a binary number that represents how many milliamps are coming through, which really represents how many pounds are currently on the scale. So you can just scale that binary number to the actual weight on the load cell or whatever. Okay. All right, and then we just kind of talked here in week 6 and week 7, we talked about the various different types of transducers. Remember, a transducer is a fancy word for an analog sensor. Okay. And then we talked a little bit about the factory talk, and you know, we use the factory talk gives us a HMI, human machine interface, and factory talk was just was the version of software provided by Rockwell or Allen Bradley to interface with their PLCs and to build those HMIs with. And so we did that lab with that. Then we had our spring break, and of course since then everything's been online, but we talked about integrators, which the whole thing again with integration is you've got this signal that's varying up and down, and you're trying to calculate what is the area under this curve. So we try to break it up into little, you know, to come through here and like fill in these areas. Okay, and we're trying to add up all these areas. Okay, but we may not get perfect area. Okay, so because if you're using a trapezoid, or even if you're using a rectangular form to calculate the area, there's these gaps here that you're missing. Okay, so what you're doing is it's an approximation of the area under the curve. Okay, so you're missing this piece here. These pieces here, you're just kind of approximating them, so you're not getting the perfect area, but you're getting an approximation using a simple geographical equation. And so the equation that we used was the area of a trapezoid, which just in general terms is height 1 plus height 2 times the base divided by 2. Okay, and that's basically because you have a triangle. Okay, so you have a triangle and a rectangle pieced together. All right, and so this is the equation of that. Okay, for doing our integration. And then, but the key is though, after you find this area, you don't forget that area. So when you calculate this next area here, you add these two together. Right, and so you add these areas together, so you get both of these areas together. And then when you do your next one, you calculate this area and you add it together. And then you do your next one and you calculate this area, but the whole time you're adding all these areas together, so it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. All right, so that's integration. And what we kind of talked about there on week 9 and 10 with integration is that, you know, with one of the examples there was the electric company, where, you know, we are using electricity every single day. And so they're adding that up. How much did we use? How much did we use? How much did we use? And they're adding that up. And then at the end of the month, they take that total, right, and then send us a bill for how much we owe them for the month. Okay. And then we talked about closed loop control. So the idea of closed loop control is the fact that we have this system here. Let me resize my drawing a little bit so I got more room to draw here. But we have some system here, and we're going to feed in a set point. Okay, and let me just kind of sketch this real quick here. All right, so this was our summing junction here. All right, so this is our summing junction, but we always use negative feedback. Okay. So it's always negative feedback there, and that generates the error. Okay, so we have our set point over here, and then we generate our control scheme that we're going to feed into the system. And so over here is our process variable. Okay, voltage could be a voltage, could be a temperature, it could be the weight. Any, whatever. So we're going to take this process variable and we're feeding this back. And then the error then is the set point minus the process variable. Then we take this error then and feed that into a control system that's going to generate a control output to push the system in the direction that we want. Right? That's our closed loop control. All right, so that's, that in a nutshell is the class. That's everything that we've talked about in there. Is there anything specific you guys want to touch on here? All right, so you guys just ready for me to load up the final so you can take it tonight then, or no questions or comments? All right, so exam 3 is out here. I think I double checked it earlier today, right? So so exam 3 is down here under week 15. Okay. And so, you can click on that. And, this is, I am dropping the lowest exam. That is correct. Yes. So, so if you're happy with your first 2 exams, you don't have to take exam 3. But if you do, you have 1 hour and 50 minutes to do it. Okay. I have the timer on there now. I've been instructed not to force it to close after the timer, because what happens sometimes if you drop out, like I just dropped out of Collaborate a couple minutes ago, and then you try to come back in, if I check that force submit box, it will it will like force it to submit when you drop out, and then you can't come back in. So so I don't have force completion turned on. Okay, but there is a timer, so you need to complete it within the time. And I set the due date to be April 30th, which is Thursday. Okay, so hopefully you can complete it by then. But if if you need to do it Friday or Saturday, that's okay. But I'm also going to open up the final exam, which is required. Um, and so hopefully you can take it over this weekend. If you guys, though, over the next few days or after you take this third exam and you have, you run into a question like on the third exam or just run into a question here over the next few days or whatever, and, email me and we can log into this Collaborate and kind of try to work through your question. Okay, or we can talk on the phone if you want, whatever you need to just try to make sure that you are comfortable. Okay. The final is due, I'm going to say by Wednesday night. Okay, if that's a problem with anybody, I could extend it, but I have to get all the grades compiled and then submitted, and I like to do that as soon as possible. So I'm going to set the final, it'll be like this one, it'll be timed. So once you start it, you'll have, an hour and 50 minutes to complete it. But I would prefer if everybody could complete it by Wednesday. Again, if, for whatever reason, you're working 80 hours because of this pandemic or whatever, I can do that. But yes, May 6th, yes. Next Wednesday. Not tomorrow. Yeah, yeah. Next Wednesday, May 6th. Yeah. All right. So any other questions there? Okay, so you don't have to log in on Thursday unless, like I say, if you have any questions or whatever, you can email me and we can set up a time to just do a one-on-one or something if you want. But, officially exam 3 is Thursday's class. Did I say Wednesday? Is Thursday's class. So, I don't have anything new to cover. So, unless you want to do a one-on-one, there's, you don't have to log in on Thursday. You don't have to log in to Collaborate next week. Okay, you just need to log in and complete the exam sometime through Wednesday, May 6th, which is next Wednesday, not tomorrow. 8 days from now. All right, so is there any other questions? All right, so this has kind of been a weird semester, but hopefully, how many of you are done? This is your last semester. I know there was at least a few of you that are done. I saw a couple of you were talking. You still got physics, but okay. Well, good luck to you. Good luck to everybody here. Stay safe and healthy, and I hope I hope your education here helps take you to where you want to go in the future, I guess. Some of you may be back in the fall. Sounds like James at least will be in the fall. Oh, you got AC in the fall, huh, James? I don't know who's teaching that. Probably not me. So, but at least maybe I'll see you around. All right. So, yeah, hopefully in a few more months, life will return back to somewhat normal. I think it's always going to be a little bit different after this. But life goes on, and we go through life changes sometimes. But this was definitely a new normal. Yeah, this was something new for everybody. I think the last time we had this was the flu epidemic back in when was it, 1930 1914 or 1918 or something. I don't know, but you know, so people have been through things like this before, but nobody really in our lifetime, other than I think they did say there was somebody who was, you know, over 100 years old, and they actually had that flu way back then and survived that, and then they actually got COVID. I mean, I don't know this person, but I just kind of heard that on the internet, which of course it's on the internet. We know it's true. So, but yeah, you know, for the majority of the people on the planet, this was a new experience. So, all right. Well, like I say, you know, anytime if you guys have any questions or anything, you can email me or call and leave me a voicemail, and we can set up a time to do a one-on-one or something. If you are not registered for classes yet, if you're not done and you need some help getting registered, you know, let me know, and I can help you get registered. And so that's about it, though. So have a, you know, good luck to you. And you say email me if you have any questions. And Dave, you're still going to be around. So, okay. All right. I'll see you in the fall.